Hi there, hello, this is me, it's Moxco here, and this is Leedsista Libre, the free podcast in which I bring you a recording of me reading out something that I wrote in the past. The recording is also in the past, but the present is happening to all of us right now at slightly different times because I recorded this also, but more recently, and you're listening to it at a later date, but exactly on time for where and whenever you are. It's about playing West Ham. That's really all I need to tell you. From 1999, it always feels like the last game of the season because it's got real last match of the season vibes, but it wasn't. This was a couple of games before we ruined Arsenal's chances of winning the Premier League. We don't have to worry about who won the Premier League as a consequence of that. Just remember, if you were there, how great it was that night when we stopped Arsenal from getting their own way. That's going to be relevant this weekend when it's Leeds United have a big part to play in deciding who gets relegated. West Ham will be right there to be laughed at. Spurs, just a few miles away, probably funnier if they get relegated, but that involves Leeds United losing, which was the conundrum back in 1999 when we just decided to beat Arsenal and let everybody else worry about the rest of it. But yeah, this isn't about that. This is about playing West Ham a few weeks before when everybody got sent off and it was all kind of hilarious and West Ham fans started getting very violent with the referee and potentially Ian Hart if they could have managed it, which is an example of what they've lost by not playing at Upton Park anymore. Once you've finished enjoying all this, you can go to Leedsista.com and you can read about how much I enjoyed and hopefully you enjoyed beating Brighton at the weekend. Also about how Marcelo Bielsa, when he was illicitly scouting opposition in the Championship, was right and good and virtuous and should have been encouraged and not told off, whereas what Southampton have been up to has merited, at the time of recording, exactly the right punishment of being thrown out of the playoffs because it's hilarious. Also, they deserve it because they've done many worse things. You can read about that in my article from last week, but at the moment they are trying to win an appeal based on the grounds of, one, that Leeds were only fined £200,000 for illicitly scouting other teams. Well, there wasn't a rule about it. We all know that. The rule was introduced after Leeds did that, so it's not relevant. Their other argument seems to be that winning the playoffs would be worth £200 million to them through promotion to the Premier League, and that's too big a prize to be denied them this way, even though it was a big enough prize for them to try to cheat to win, and also a big enough prize that Middlesbrough and Hull City would be very interested in winning that prize fair and square. I don't think that's going to hold up for them. I really hope it doesn't hold up for them, and I really hope that all the rumours about their own players suing the football club for loss of earnings absolutely tears that place apart, because I had a miserable time at the playoff final the other year, and they've got it coming. Meanwhile, what you've got coming is a fun recording from a few years ago of me about Leeds United playing West Ham in 1999 and having a great time. Here's to more great times. The first half action at Upton Park was all happening off camera. First, nobody could be sure who from Leeds' team clattered Eyal Berkovic straight from kick-off, although while he was down lying injured, everybody saw Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank taking the ball off Ian Wright and shooting low past Shaka Hislop to put Leeds ahead after 23 seconds. When Berkovic returned from treatment, he had a quiet word with John Moncur, whose late tackle through Lee Bowyer earned him a booking and cleared up the identity of the mystery assailant. Ian Wright got an early yellow card too for elbowing Alfie Haaland, then another one after a 50-50 challenge with Ian Hart. The camera caught them coming together after the ball had gone. The next shot showed Hart lying on the floor in a daze, holding his head, then Wright being ordered off and losing his head. The camera missed what happened between Hart and Wright, and so did Hammers boss Harry Redknapp, although he had an opinion anyway. "I didn't see the incident, but I'm disappointed," he said. Leeds manager David O'Leary took a different tack. "I know exactly what he did," he said, "but I can't tell you." As for Wright's meltdown, TV showed Trevor Sinclair's attempts to restrain him as he kept lunging at the referee, Rob Harris. But there was only a glimpse of Nigel Martin, Wright's old teammate from Crystal Palace, running 50 yards into the corner of the screen to get his old mate out of trouble. Lost out of shot was a West Ham supporter leaping from the chicken run stand and trying to kick the linesman, and debris being thrown at Hart while he lay on the ground. Wright eventually went down the tunnel with tears in his eyes, and we have to rely on reconstruction to know what happened next. The locked door to the referee's room being kicked off its hinges, Harris's clothes being strewn about, a television smashed on the floor. I don't even remember properly what I did, only that I was in the ref's room, Wright said. I hope and pray to God that I can be forgiven for this stupid and reckless act by the match officials, the club, the fans, and the authorities. The teams had only been playing for 16 minutes. A goal down and a player down, West Ham were already depleted before the game by injuries, Rio Ferdinand and Ian Pearce's absence forcing Steve Lomas and Marc-Vivien Foé into uncomfortable defensive positions. Despite it all, they were the better side, but saw how their luck was going before half-time, although after the delays getting right off the field, it was still the 6th minute of stoppage time. The ref waved play on after David Batty fouled Lomas. Even Batty seemed ashamed, said one report, and that let Harry Kewell run past Foé along the byline and almost to the front post, the ideal spot to put the second goal on a plate for Alan Smith. Paolo Di Canio was booked for arguing about that goal because of course he was, and came out fired up for the second half because of course he did. After giving the ball to Berkovic wide on the left, he sprinted into the box for the return pass and scored past Martin from 12 yards. Leeds looked unprepared for the situation. The perceived injustice of the first half had made Upton Park so angry there were 6 arrests in the crowd and the referee needed a police escort at half-time. The West Ham players were channeling that frustration into an attempt that looked highly likely to win the match. They were even angrier by full-time, but the game was long gone by then. Hislop brought Hasselbank down in the penalty area when the striker was away from Foé and through. The penalty was obvious, the red card all but unavoidable according to the law. Scott Minto in the foreground had his head in his hands before Hislop was back on his feet. Craig Forrest came on for Berkovic and went in goal, but Hart scored easily to make it 3-1. The West Ham fans, whose opinion of Hart was low enough after the first half, did not enjoy his somersault, or that he was spinning in front of a stand full of ecstatic Leeds fans, a cheerful pile of white and yellow replica shirts in the early summer sunshine. With 10 players and 1 goal needed to equalise, West Ham had felt they had a chance. Down to 9 and 2 behind, they just felt pissed off. By the end, only Berkovic, Sinclair and Frank Lampard Jr. of West Ham's starting 11 avoided being shown a card. Leeds, meanwhile, avoided their upset players. Hasselbank backheeled Haaland's pass into space on the edge of the penalty area, and either time stood still or it was the Hammers' defence, waiting and watching for Bowyer to run onto the ball and hit a shot, first time into Forest's bottom corner. A minute later, with the game compressing on the left, Hasselbank passed to Haaland, standing alone in half a pitch on the right. He took the ball into the box and kicked it across Forest into his other bottom corner, then set off to high-five the front row of the fans behind the goal. At 5-1, there was only one thing left for West Ham to do, go down to 8 players, Lomas getting sent off in the 87th minute for a 2-footed lunge at Hart. Leeds did get a few yellows of their own, Batty for a foul on Lampard, Smith, inevitably, Clyde Vinehard. But the Hammers were in a league of their own for indiscipline, while, thanks to this win, Leeds qualified for the UEFA Cup, with 3 games left to try getting into the Champions League. Frankly, I thought we were disappointing, said O'Leary, who had been in an argumentative mood all week. His predecessor, Howard Wilkinson, whose blueprints from 1988 built the Thorpe Arch Academy, now supplying 5 of United's starting 11, had given an interview about their progress. There are so many people that deserve credit for the way the kids have emerged into such good players, he said. O'Leary wasn't impressed. They were only 13-year-olds when he had them. A lot happens from then on. This is my team now. I've worked with them for the last 2 years with Eddie Gray. Due next was a summer of transfers and contracts. O'Leary had a new 5-year deal, so did Alan Smith. But some players had to go. Vinehard, Lee Sharp, Danny Granville, Derek Lilly, and others wanted more money to stay. A survey had just been published into Spiralling Wages, claiming Newcastle's Duncan Ferguson was the highest paid player in the Premier League at £40,000 per week, even ahead of his teammate Alan Shearer's £35,000. Leeds chairman Peter Ridsdale was sounding a note of caution and financial sense. Clubs needed, he said, to face up to the reality that transfer fees and wages must not be allowed to continue to grow at levels that are unsustainable. Try telling that to Jimmy Hasselbank. His goal, not to mention 2 assists and a penalty won, pushed him ahead of Andy Cole and Dwight York to 1 goal behind injured Michael Owen in the race to be the Premier League top scorer. Of course, I would love to win the Golden Boot, he said. I'm a striker and it's my job to score goals. Maybe if I finish with the most goals in England, then the club will give me the contract I've heard so much about.